When I joined Medical Algorithmics less than a year ago, I knew we need to develop a completely new device for testing cardiac arrhythmias. And we need it soon. In Scrum, I've always missed a stage where we try to get to know and understand customers and users really well. I also believe that the ideation phase is too often done carelessly in Scrum team. It seems that this is the responsibility of the product owner, who somehow acquires this knowledge and then reveals it to the team. If the development team is lucky, they can meet users and customers during the sprint review. But let's face it, how often are users of our products on our sprint review? We also felt a great distance from users. Many people think that users of our products look like in commercials, young and athletic. The truth is that most of our patients look more like Harold. They are about 70 years old and still use a landline. By the way, medical devices are usually large, heavy and angular, with a lot of cables, screens and switches. This is because this type of device is subject to very high requirements, including endurance. Usability then takes a back seat, because a device that is small and pretty is useless if it's not approved for use. If you have ever had a Holter ECG examination, the device the nurse put on you probably looked something like this. Such a device can record 24 to 48 hours of your ECG signal. After this time, it is also removed by the nurse. Large, uncomfortable and problematic to use. Our goal was to create a device that would be as comfortable as possible and in the same time record the ECG signal for 14 days. In addition, the device should enable taking a shower and ensure operation throughout the test without changing the batteries. Needless to say, it had to meet very strict medical requirements. Already during the design sprint, we learned that almost a third of our tests are carried out in the formula of sending the device to the patient. You probably guess that this value has increased even more in the era of the coronavirus. So, since nowadays most of the devices are put on by the patients themselves, usability has to be at a really high level. To be honest, when we started the initiative, we didn't know if it was possible to create such a device at all, because there was none on the market that met all these criteria. And we did it. We created a device that not only meets all the assumed criteria, but also many others that we have added ourselves during the work. It is worn this way and is almost imperceptible to the patient in normal use. And the small, neat device can even survive the fall of half of a kilogram of a steel ball on it from a height of 1 meter, which is one of the certification tests carried out. How did we do it in less than a year in a team of a dozen or so people? Let's start the story. As I said before, we had some basic assumptions that we wanted to implement. Even before I came to the company, a sensor that can be purchased from the manufacturer and incorporated into our system was tested. However, it didn't meet most of our expectations, and also adjusting our IT systems would require a lot of work. We realized that we had to create a completely new device. For this to make business sense, the sensor must be built in a year. It may seem easy, but in such a small team, it is really a daunting task. Fortunately, we had many specialists with us who took part in creating the previous solutions. We decided that design sprint would be the perfect solution in this situation. At that time, I was the only person in the company who had previously participated in design sprint. Unfortunately, these were not hardware sprints, and we knew that this one would have to be adjusted a bit to our needs. If you don't know the design sprint yet, I encourage you to read Jake Knapp's book or materials that you can easily find on the internet. For example, from the AJ Smart, who have carried out more sprints for their clients than Google Ventures, where this solution arose. In general, the idea is to shorten the path from an idea to obtaining the data necessary for the product development without the time-consuming building of a finished product and releasing it to the market. This is what we needed because we didn't want to build a product for 12 months that would either not work or be defective from the user's point of view. Classic design sprint, described in Knapp's book, takes 5 days. Due to the nature of our product, we decided to extend our sprint to 7 working days. The first 3 days did not differ from those in the classic design sprint. Then we had 2.5 days for prototyping and 1.5 days for testing with users. I think it's worth adding that the preparation for the design sprint took us about a month, so there were about 3 days of preparation for each day of the sprint. From each team that was later involved in the implementation, we chose at least one person, so we managed to put together a fully interdisciplinary team. We had also 2 deciders. One was the chief product owner and the other was our CEO, who really understands the needs of the American market. On the first day of the sprint, we learned about the needs of our customers and users of our products. Also, drawing on expert knowledge, we sketched a map of the process in which we operate. We analyzed what are the needs and what possibilities we have. We decided which part of the process we will analyze further and what we'll actually prototype. On the second day, we analyzed the solutions of the competition and reviewed various solutions from other areas. In our case, we made full use of sports solutions. At the end of the second day, each of us, including me, prepared a draft of the solution he or she had imagined up to then. Here you can see our sketches. On the third day of the sprint, we chose the best elements of each solution and defined what our prototype would be. We focused on usability and convenience during the medical examination. In the next 2 days, a physical prototype of our device was to be created, which could be put on the patient, would allow to report symptoms, for example chest pain, or at least simulate it, and would withstand 24 hours of wearing without revealing that it was a total fake. Of course, there was no question of recording any ECG signal. At the prototyping stage, we encountered so many challenges and problems that we only miraculously managed to create a prototype on time. Here, Krzysiek presents our prototype, and a few more are still waiting for fake screens to be glued. All our patients were people from the target group. We assumed that we would put our prototype sensor on each patient and ask them to come back after 24 hours and share their impressions of using it. The results of the interviews exceeded our wildest expectations. We collected a whole lot of valuable material, not only from wearing our prototype, but also by really understanding what the everyday life of our typical patients look like. what problems he faces, and how he solves them. We brought our developers closer to the user as much as possible. And based on these experiences, we created personas that we use to this day. After the end of the sprint, is it worth taking another one right away? And another one? People from AJ Smart now recommend that design sprint should be shortened to 4 days and done 2 sprints in a row. I have to admit that the first sprint left a feeling of dissatisfaction. However, we decided to take a different route. You have to remember that design sprint is a huge effort, especially when it comes to participants and facilitator. The most intense Scrum sprint is not half as exhausting as a well-run design sprint. If you do not have a ready-made workshop space to hand it over to the team for a few days, preparing it is also a challenge. In our case, an additional challenge was that half of the working team was from Warsaw, and we did the sprint in Gdańsk, so some of us were separated from their families for these few days. Even though we didn't do design sprint in its classic form after that, we really didn't want to lose 3 things. First, contact with users that allows us to understand their challenges well. The second, phases of generating ideas in a group but separately. And also the third thing, tests with users. Using story mapping, we divided the project into smaller elements and prepared a list of hypotheses to be verified and experiments to be carried out. The users of our products are not only patients, but also nurses, our shipping department, and many others. We can always invite people from inside the company to sprint review, but to verify the effects of our work with patients and nurses, we organize dedicated meetings, focused only on what concerns them. Almost until the end of the development phase, we don't have a comprehensive solution that we can use to check all use cases. Therefore, we must constantly build prototypes adapted to testing a specific functionality. We spent a lot of time testing the multiple iterations of the symptom report button. The point was that it should have the right shape so that it could be easily felt under the shirt. It had to be soft enough to press it easily, but stiff enough that during sleep and normal activities, such as gardening, which is typical old ladies activity, there would be no false symptom reports. The patient must also be aware that he has successfully reported the symptom. This is a very stressful moment for the patient to feel unwell, want to report a symptom, and fail. With the nurses, for example, we had to test the patient enrollment process, which in this case is not that simple because we wanted to be compatible with our entire Pocket ECG system. There were many such issues to be verified. In some of the experiments, we could be guinea pigs ourselves, such as when testing whether physical activity did not cause too many artifacts in the ECG signal. You would have to see my friends running around the building, making jumpers and rolling on the ground. And each experiment was one PBI. Or if it was a larger and multi-stage experiment, more like EPIC. We determined what we wanted to verify and what effect we expect. We created a prototype, be it in the form of 3D prints with special electronics or, for example, in the form of screen prints. Then we conducted tests and drew conclusions that were either sufficient to freeze the element or form the basis for another experiment. Here you can see an experiment card that we have been using for some time in the company. It helps to define the experiment well. You may not always need all of the fields, but this is a good basis for defining your experiment. We returned to the process map prepared on the first day of the design sprint many times, when it turned out that it either looks a little different than we thought, or when we just wanted to write out a fragment of the process in more detail. An example may be the moment of receiving the device from the patient, its cleaning and the preparation for the next examination. It turned out that it matters when we remove the old battery and when we put the new one in, and whether cleaning should take place without the battery, with an old battery, or with a new one. With each experiment, we also deepened the knowledge about our users. At a certain stage, we wanted to know if when an elderly patient receives a package with our sensor, he decides to put it on himself or ask someone for help. And if they ask for help from others, what would have to change for them to decide to do it themselves? From our point of view, it's important because the sooner the patient starts the examination, the sooner he will finish it and send the device back. And we will be able to send the device to the next patient. Once we had the necessary knowledge, we sat down in the team and generated ideas on how to solve a given problem. And then, together we worked out the solution, which became a prototype needed for the experiment. Next, the preparation of the prototype and conducting the test. Doesn't that sound like going through all the stages of design sprint without actually running design sprint? This is how we see it, and it fits perfectly into Scrum sprints, in which, in addition to conducting experiments, we also carry out other necessary development work. Does this mean that design sprint can be completely omitted? In our opinion, no. Design sprint is the perfect starting point in a project and gives us the foundation we work on until the very end. And is it enough if we only do design sprint at the beginning of the project? In my opinion, no. If we had not carried out further experiments, the battery in our device would probably still be in its lower part. Is it worth experimenting with everything? Definitely not. Experiments, especially with users, are very costly. We need to be able to separate situations where our knowledge and experience are enough from those where an experiment is needed. And be careful with extending our experiments with one product to other products. On the other hand, the knowledge gained about our users is universal and we should always use it. I really encourage you to try design sprint in your teams. If you decide that it's not for you, you will lose those few days. However, I'm sure that design sprint and its elements will stay with you forever and will extend your Scrum Master workshop. If you are afraid that you will not be able to run design sprint by yourself, believe me that if you have any experience in running other workshops, you will definitely do. If this still does not convince you, I will suggest that the first time you can conduct a design sprint in a team of Scrum Masters only. There is also always the option of hiring someone who will come from the outside and conduct a design sprint for you. Anyway, I strongly recommend you to try it. Thank you.
Please tell us why you started a podcast Agile Post IT. You translated this Agile outside of IT. Why you decided to share your insight via this channel?
Okay, when I started my job at Medical Algorithmics, I tried to find some materials because it's hardware, so it's a medical device. There are medical devices, and it was really hard to find any examples of this. Of doing Scrum in hardware and
agility.
yeah, and outside of IT. So I decided to share my knowledge after about 1 year of my work at Medical Algorithmics. So yeah, that was the starting point.
You've told me that you plan to have interviews with the people who are doing Agile outside of IT, like you do. Definitely, I will look for it. Definitely, very interesting. And regarding your lecture, we have a chat about it, and I'm curious, is there any case when you recommend using this huge design sprint approach instead of your experiments on the job?
I think there are a few cases. It's because of course it's expensive, but still, if you have a really big change on the market, so you have to completely redesign everything from the beginning, or maybe your first design sprint was not so successful, so maybe you gathered some knowledge, but still you felt that it was not enough. So I think that are two cases. So the first things coming to my mind when I think to do some very expensive thing.
Expensive and exhausting, as you
exhausting,
said. Exhausting. Yeah, and connected with this, we have a question from Marcin. Marcin asked, did you try shortening the stages of design sprint to a day? When did it work? When it wasn't? Is it the best choice to do so? Just shorten them.
I feel that we learned a lot during this first design sprint. So first phases of the design sprint you can shorten quite a lot. You can do 3 days in 1 day, I think. Of course, using the data from previous design sprints or from your knowledge database in the company. But for us, the most important thing and the most crucial thing is prototyping and doing interviews with the patients. So I think it's hard, and now we try to do the second design sprint, and the interviews would be even longer. So it would be 4 days. So yeah, because that's the case when we can gather more data and they are more valuable.
I wonder, is this shorter approach, like 3 phases in 1 day, is more or less exhausting than the consecutive 3 days? I just wonder. It could be a good experiment anyway. You as a team, you prepared a tangible medical device. So you choose to experiment on the job instead of design sprint. What do you think regarding software? It's not tangible as your device. Is this approach applicable to software as well?
Yeah. I think it is both ways. So the design sprint, and I think design sprint in software, I tried it, and it's easier. It's much easier because you can easily use some things that you have already. So some parts of the code, some designs, and so on, and put it together. But still it is exhausting, because it's every day it's 8 hours of thinking and trying to figure it out and understand other people, and they are not from your matter of knowledge. Yeah. So and I think prototyping on the way it's also great for IT because it's faster. You can get some small answers. It's not that big. You have to ask everyone. You can find maybe one user. So do a small thing and ask the user and got the answer.
If any of you guys are using this approach for your software, maybe it will be good to contact Sławek, and maybe we'll have a very interesting interview for your podcast.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you very much again for lecture and for the chat. It will be all before the lunch break. I recommend you, if you have any further question for Sławek, just add to the Slack, the channel, Sławek and his talk, and ask them there. So I think you will be available to answer the questions.
Of course. Till the end of the second day. So yeah.
So to the end of second day, Sławek will be available. So please share your questions, and thank you very much. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.